Hello. Welcome back to my podcast. You're listening to Girl versus Life. This is a podcast produced by Girl versus Planet. That's me. I'm your host, Cheryl. So today we're going to be talking about just kind of what I've been doing lately and some things that I thought about. So just to jump right in, I don't even know what got me on this kick, but I've been watching and listening to things related to cults lately. So I think I saw a clip on Instagram or something, how you're scrolling and you come across something and it's just some random TV show or movie clip that sometimes they don't even tell you what it is, what the clip is from. But I came across this clip from a TV show and come to find out was from the season of American Horror Story called Cult. And I think I've only watched maybe one season of American Horror Story before. So this cult season sounded interesting to me. And so I thought I would give it another shot. So I went out and found this specific season because if you're not familiar with American Horror Story, it's an anthology, which means that each one of the seasons of the show can kind of stand alone. You don't have to see previous seasons to get what's going on in that one season. So each season is a standalone. So I started watching the season called Cult and it kind of sucked me in. It was weird, but relevant. First of all, let me preface this. Let me provide a disclaimer here at the very beginning because I don't want to offend anyone. That's not my intention. And I don't really want to swing to one side or the other of the political spectrum. I am pretty much a Democrat. I'm pretty liberal. I'm not a fan of Trump, but I do have friends and family that are fans of his and they voted for him. And so, everybody has a choice, right? So I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into politics as far as like my political leanings today. That's not what I want to talk about. But going back to American Horror Story, this season called Cult did start with the 2016 US presidential election. And it talks about the election. It kind of shows reactions to it. At least this is all purely fictional. Maybe somewhat based in kind of general reality, how people reacted to it. But that's where the story starts. And it takes into account people from both sides of the political spectrum. And there's different characters on both sides as well. So it starts with the election and it kind of goes into people's reactions about it. And there is one guy that decides to run for city council and he gets people to believe in him and to do things because they are frustrated with the election, they're frustrated with how things are, or they're not happy with things that are happening in their life. And so they meet him, he talks to them. They're seeking connection to go back to what I was talking about in my last episode. So he kind of just gets this group of people together and gets them to do things to help get him elected. And some of these things are just really not good things. And so that's kind of what the show is about. It's very intense. It's scary because it is American Horror Story, right? But it's scary in a weird way. It is not scary in your typical horror movie type of way. It's scary. I don't want to give too much away because I would rather you go out and watch it. Let me put it that way. It's very intense and it's scary in a very intense way, but at least to me. So give it a shot. I thought it was good. I'm actually not finished with the season yet. I've got I think 2 more episodes maybe. It's interesting. So I started watching that. And then for whatever reason, I also have been listening. So I've been listening to more podcasts because I am hosting a podcast. So I've been listening to more as well. And I came across one when I was browsing through like Apple Podcasts or whatever. And I came across it's called Allison After NXIVM. And if you're not familiar, this so-called cult called NXIVM, spelled NXIVM, happened a few years back, got some celebrities involved in it, and there was some really crazy stuff that went on. Just sexual things, lots of things happened, and a big thing that came out of it was people were branded with brands on their body and just some crazy stuff. The leader of NXIVM, Keith Raniere, he was arrested. And so were some other people, including celebrities that were involved in this whole thing. But one of them being Allison Mack, who was an actress on the show Smallville. And the podcast is about talking to her after she's gotten out of jail for her involvement with NXIVM and kind of just what the experience was like for her and how she's doing now after she's gotten out of jail. And so I don't know why this whole cult thing has sucked me in recently, but that's just kind of one rabbit hole I have apparently gone down. And I didn't even intend, it wasn't like I said, hey, I just want to wake up this morning and listen to a podcast about cults and watch a TV show about cults. It's more that I just started watching American Horror Story, and I didn't even realize the connection between the two until the other day. And I was thinking about this, and I'm like, these are both about cults. This is interesting that somehow this has sucked me in lately. So American Horror Story, honestly, one thing that struck me, going back to American Horror Story, one thing that struck me about the show is that the leader of the so-called cult in the show, his name is Kai. And I don't get what it is that sucked people in to this group that he's got. Honestly, he's not, I mean, I guess he could be considered charismatic in that he's able to talk to people and relate to them and get them to see his point of view and see how that relates to them. But he's kind of like, he's just kind of, he's got this like stringy blue hair that's dyed and the roots are showing and it just doesn't look good. And it's not like he's this great looking dude, which is kind of interesting if you think about it, that that's not something that cult leaders apparently need, because then you go over to, I mean, and not that I'm judging people's looks, but like these are not your typical people that you would think of as far as clean cut, really good looking, that like physical attraction type of thing, you know? And I mean, I'm not judging, like I said, I mean, I'm not happy with my looks either, but whatever, it is what it is. But I don't see the appeal. I don't see why all of these different people in this show, you've got people that are Trump supporters, you've got people that were Hillary Clinton supporters, and they are both in this group, this cult. And I'm just like, why? Like, why are these people doing these things for Kai? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I guess that kind of goes back to the nature of a cult, honestly. I'm kind of going all over the place. I'm not going in the order that I meant to go in. But I did look up what makes a cult a cult. And there's something called the BITE model, the BITE, and it helps explain the difference between a strong community and something more controlling, with a leader or just leaders that are controlling people and getting them to do things that are not in their best interest. So a quick run through of what the BITE model means. So the B stands for behavior control. And when a group tries to control your time or your actions or your lifestyle. And that's very evident in both the American Horror Story episode as well as the NXIVM cult. There were people that moved to different locations for NXIVM, did things that were just the branding, the sex things, and just the stuff that went on is like, this was all very much controlled. I mean, if you go all the way to the top, I mean, there were other people that were a part of it, but controlled so much by Keith Raniere. And then the I in BITE, going back to the BITE model, is information control. And that's basically limiting outside information, telling you not to listen to critics, which makes sense when you think about a cult. You think about people outside of the cult seeing their friends and family getting involved and thinking, hey, this is not right. This is not good. They're criticizing it. And the people that are involved are hearing that, but they're not listening because they're so deep into it that they don't see the harm that's being caused. And then the T in BITE is thought control, shaping how you think or framing things in black and white. So like no gray areas. It's either the cult's way or, you know, it's either 100% right, 100% wrong. And that's very evident in these examples too. And then emotion control is the E in bite. And that is using guilt, fear, or shame to keep people in line. One of the things in the NXIVM cult, they found out secrets about people and they took pictures of people that they could use against these people to keep them afraid and keep them ashamed and keep them following the cult and following what the cult was doing instead of being in their own best interests. So, I mean, looking at that model, you can see how a community, a group of people, could be a community and then also have the whole controlling aspect of it and become a cult. And a couple of other examples of cults or not a cult. I was involved in a life coaching kind of community several years ago, back when I lived in Indiana, called Beyond Your Best. And I don't think it was a cult. I would not say that at all, honestly. But I did some research when I was in it and involved in it. And you could go online and there were people whose family members were involved in it, and their family members or friends got so involved in it, and it seemed to be changing who they were so much that the friends or family members thought that their friend was in a cult. Looking at that aspect of it, I would say that these particular people, there were some people that did get very involved in it because they really liked how it was helping them in their lives and it was doing good for them, and they tried to get other people involved. And so they just got so intensely involved in it that that's why their friends and family thought that it was a cult, because it seemed like it was taking over their lives. And it didn't do that for me. It was helpful. It was beneficial. I was involved. I liked the community. I still have friends from that community. Um, it to me, it wasn't a cult because it didn't change my life in that aspect. And I didn't feel like I was being controlled. It was just helpful knowledge, helpful experiences to me, and a helpful community. Um, but it was interesting to go online and read that people did think that it was a cult. It comes down to, I think that people have different ways of seeing things because you never see somebody else's experience. You only see your own. So the people that are in the cult, I mean, to them, it's just helpful. They don't see the harm that it's causing. I mean, so it also got me to thinking one other thing about this, going back to American Horror Story, going back to the fact that it started with the Trump election, or the 2016 presidential election where Trump was first elected. And um, I mean, there are people that would consider Trump supporters a cult. There are people that would consider, I mean, if you look at it a certain way, religions could be a cult. Honestly, I mean, it controls what people think and do. It changes their life that way. I'm not saying any religion, any particular religion is a cult. I'm not religious really anymore. I used to be. I grew up in it. I mean, I knew some really great people that were very religious, and I think I love those people, and I don't know. It's just something to think about, honestly. Um yeah, this is turning very, hope I'm not getting too controversial. I'm honestly just having the conversation and just opening this discussion up because I think that, like I said, my goal is not to offend. I'm not saying anything against religion. I'm not saying anything against people that voted for Trump's. That's where I'm at. I'm not religious and I am not a fan of Trump. I think this whole cult thing is interesting. It's just interesting to see things that have been realized as a cult later on after the harm has been done. And like NXIVM, like the Heaven's Gate cult and things like that. And like in American Horror Story, which is a fictionalized version, but still, you don't see the harm until afterwards. So I guess I'm kind of bringing this back to my topic of the last episode, which was connection with people and something that we all crave. And community is something that we all crave. And so a lot of us, I think, join things because we want that connection. If you find a community, cult, even whatever, people join things because community is helpful. There are people that are like you. Even if there are people that are not like you, having this community, having this connection, this one thing in common, being a part of this group together can bring you that community, can bring you that connection. It's when you get to that point of there's one person or a group, like a group of people that are changing you and controlling you and getting you to think things that you wouldn't think on your own. And especially when those things go against your morals and your values, which, like in American Horror Story, they do. I think most of us join things because we want to belong, we want to be a part of something. And that can mean a great community of people and friends. And that can be a good thing because we all need that in our lives. And I think that the line sometimes becomes between community and control can be thinner than you think. I guess where I'm coming from is I think it's best for us all to be curious, to be open-minded. One thing that I think I've gotten out of the podcast about Allison After NXIVM is that once you hear her side of the story, it's easy to see how someone looking for a community could get sucked into something that is not good for them because we all crave that connection. And I think it's best to be curious, to find out about these type of things, to learn about them, to be open-minded, and don't necessarily judge other people for getting into a bad situation because we're all here together just trying to do our best. We all see things differently and we're all just looking for something to be a part of. And so the more I watched American Horror Story and listened to this NXIVM podcast, it just reminded me to not necessarily judge other people for getting pulled into groups like this. It makes sense. We're all looking for meaning and connection and a place to feel like we belong. And I think it's best, instead of standing here and being like, how could they fall for that, to just be like, well, what were they looking for? What were they hoping to find? And stay curious. It feels like it's much more kind and honest, honestly. If you've seen the show Ted Lasso, which I'm a huge fan of, there is one of my favorite lines that Ted says in that show is to be curious and not judgmental, because you never know what you're going to go through in your life, and you're going to make stupid mistakes. You're going to do things that aren't good for you or for your family and friends, and we all do. And just, I really like that line. Be curious and not judgmental. And I think that's something good to exercise in this case. So that's kind of just, we kind of went down a rabbit hole today talking about cults, but I've been, like I said, watching the TV shows, watching American Horror Story. I've been listening to Allison After NXIVM and just thinking about groups that we can get involved in and sucked into that could turn from a really good community that's helpful for us into something that's not so helpful and could potentially be dangerous. So I think it's just best to not judge one another and to just do your best to make the right decisions. So that's where I'm at today. Who knows what I'll be talking about next time, but thanks for listening. Thanks for joining. Is there an experience that you would like to share? Is there a cult that you or somebody that you know has been involved in, or something that you thought could have been a cult and maybe it turned out it really wasn't? So just send me an email, Cheryl@girlversusplanet.com, and I hope that you will keep listening and keep watching, and I'll see you next time.